can't get it out. Oh, you got it? Did I?
Hi, Sheriff.
Sorry. Don't touch
No.
but you'll have to remain in this little area. Is it not? This is this. So we don't have a stationary? No, we have to hold it. Hold it and read. Okay. I need to mark the lesson. Okay. This one, don't touch.
It's funny because this one comes out of here, but if they're using that one, we're not gonna. Most of we're not gonna be able to really hear them.
But they're gonna, yeah, they're
We're gonna have to
stay,
just do it. Yeah, it's okay. We'll make it.
Sorry. Okay.
I'm where? Just waiting.
You, Tena, Mayor.
I have where they place us. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm Rania Mancario, CEO of Crime Stoppers of Houston, and we want to welcome you today to today's event that will address the current state of the homeless animal crisis in Houston. I want to thank the elected officials, and there's a lot of them here today, animal welfare organizations, law enforcement partners, shelter partners, and others who care deeply about the animals of Houston. We're honored to be joined by our leaders today, Houston PetSet's co-presidents, Tama Lundquist and Tena Lundquist Faust, and their entire team. We're excited to hear their report and get behind their initiative today. In a moment, you'll also hear from Mayor John Whitmire about his new to make Houston a leader in animal welfare. Thank you, Mayor Whitmire. Crime Stoppers of Houston serves the greater Houston metropolitan area through a number of programs, but you'll see at the heart of it is justice, serving victims, and ensuring the proactive protection of our most valuable and vulnerable citizens, the elderly, children, and especially animals. With today's focus on animals, we know two things. Stray animals pose a threat to public safety. Additionally, they are vulnerable to animal cruelty and neglect, which is a crime. These animals are frequently shot, intentionally hit with cars, beaten, or forced into dogfighting. We also know that people who hurt animals hurt people. With a strong link between animal cruelty and family violence ever present, we also know that people who commit crimes against animals do not hesitate to commit crimes in the community, and certainly victims in homes where animals are abused and where they are abused will also stay in the home because they don't want to leave their animals behind. For 15 years, Crime Stoppers of Houston has been working with Houston PetSet to address all these issues and more. Together, we're trying to fill the gaps, create education, support them in their work on legislation, and so much more. We're thrilled that years ago we partnered to create the Harris County Animal Cruelty Task Force and continue to be working side by side and doing whatever we can to support them. Houston is a city that fiercely takes care of its own. Animals should be no different. So we're very, very thankful to the leaders here today. I want to acknowledge the sheriff, in addition to the mayor, our district attorney, and all of you. We thank you. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to Tina. Thank you, Rhonda.
That's called twin speak. We've been waiting for this day for a very, very long time, so thank you all for being here. Thank you, Rania, and everyone at Crime Stoppers for your steadfast partnership and commitment to safety for animals and humans. Houston PetSet is celebrating 20 years of serving the Houston community. In those 20 years, we have watched the animal welfare landscape change for the better in so many ways. But despite the wins, we are facing a stray animal crisis. We've been sounding the alarm for years that this would eventually spill out of the shelters and into the communities. As we predicted, this has now become a full-scale public safety crisis. In a few moments, we will hear from the newly elected Mayor John Whitmire about the challenges we face, but first we would like to provide some important context. Over the last 2 decades, Houston PetSet has partnered with Texas Humane Legislation Network, to push for stricter animal welfare laws and local ordinances. Those include state laws such as the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act, which bans the use of chains as a restraint and defines proper shelter for pets living outside. We also advocated for the passage of the Texas Licensed Breeder Law, which lowers the number of breeding dogs required to be considered a commercial breeder. This will bring many more for-profit breeders under the watchful eye of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. And finally, a law that bans convicted animal abusers from owning a companion animal for 5 years. Locally, we championed the mandatory microchip ordinance to help lost pets find their way home, as well as the humane pet store ordinance aimed at closing the puppy mill pipeline and giving rescued pets more chances to find loving homes. We are so proud of the hard work of our partners and supporters that helped get these laws passed. But what we have learned is that these laws and ordinances are useless if our municipalities are not given the proper resources to enforce them. What do these resources look like? Obviously, it starts with funding, where the city and the county's animal control budgets in the region have fallen woefully short. Our nonprofit partners have been forced to pick up the slack, both financially and operationally. Houston spends approximately $6 per capita on animal welfare, while cities like Dallas and San Antonio spend $15 and $18 respectively. That's almost 3 times. Our animal welfare partners and grant recipients have a combined budget of $121.6 million. The animal welfare nonprofits are doing the lion's share of the work. Although it seems insurmountable, we know there is hope. We are so grateful that our new mayor comes into this role with a long history of prioritizing animal welfare during his many years in the state legislature. His very presence here today shows how he's committed to ending this crisis. We know you could have been a lot of places today. And we are honored to partner with you and welcome Mayor John Whitmire to the podium.
Thank you, and thank everyone that's here. Certainly our elected officials, we couldn't be successful in prosecuting animal cruelty without an effective district attorney. Good honor to be in law enforcement. We've got an outstanding sheriff with us today, and 2 outstanding city council members. Thank you, Councilman Castillo, for picking up the banner. And of course, we couldn't do much in City Hall without Councilmember Alcorn, who will be very soon. We'll be announcing her chairpersonship of finance. also have to monitor the resources at the city. Certainly thank PetSet's. I could spend the rest of the day thanking people. Can we just assume we appreciate everyone?
Yeah.
Crime Stoppers, they obviously have such a record of helping victims of crime, and they recognize that our animal friends are certainly victims when they're abused, left on the street, strayed, etc. HPD, we appreciate your representation here. Chief Tena had a conflict, could not be here, but I know where his heart and his staff stands on this issue. What we're doing today is speaking for our animal friends that can't speak for themselves. And it's so well documented, as Rena pointed out, all the indicators are there that if you abuse animals, you'll abuse your fellow human beings. And we do have a strong record. PetSet's, myself, and other stakeholders here of changing state laws. I can't begin to tell you the education that went in to educate our rural legislators that animals are family members and they need to be protected. And I could go through a series of legislation that we had to fight for. One that Sheriff Gonzalez, I like to point out, is the training for law enforcement to de-escalate confrontation between law enforcement and the family pet when they show up. The history was that they would shoot when they were attacked by an animal pet that felt like they were doing their role of protecting the family dog. And so through 6 hours of required training now, they de-escalate, they back up, they realize the pet is doing what he or she feels is in the best interest of the family. And I've seen a dramatic decrease in shootings and taking of the life of family members, those being the pets. So I could go on and on. Now, we have had a lot of success. I think it's a success that we're all gathered here today. That would have taken place. In the United States 5 years ago, 10 and 20 years ago. When I got to Austin 50 years ago, this was not even a topic. Now it's not only a topic, it's hard work and success. And I've been very pleased to be the voice in Austin for the animal welfare. So now we fast forward, we have an opportunity to run the city of Houston. But we have to be realistic. The city, under a revenue cap, has very limited resources. I could begin to give you a list of needs of the city, whether it's parks, garbage pickup, public safety, I could go on and on. But what we have to do, and what you're doing by your presence here today, is making animal welfare a priority. I've spoken out during the campaign, or even as a senator, about the lack of prioritizing bark. We've got to do better. I'm in the process of working with county officials to see if we can consolidate or certainly collaborate the county shelter and the city shelter. I'm of a strong opinion as someone that's raised a family in Houston, my own love for pets, my co-workers when I was working at the state welfare office in 1972 in the food stamp office. There was a shelter there on Wall Drive at Washington. And when we, young workers, we were all college students, had some time, we could go over to that shelter. And I don't know how many of you remember that, but that's where the animal shelter was in the city of Houston. And invariably, the young people I worked with would leave there adopting a pet. So if we could get bark more exposed, or the public more exposed to bark and the opportunity to adopt, foster parent, a animal, cat, dog, or the other day they had 3 horses there. I've got a daughter that knows, I've got a little farm near Brenham, and she's in the process of trying to get another horse, another refugee horse up in our place. So what we've got to do is education, that there's the need, the interest of the public in providing for our animal friends, and then we've got to do the resources. And that's where partnering with the county can solve a lot of these problems. There's no reason to duplicate that service. Then I would propose I'm gonna need all of y'all to pull this off. We need to think about making it a nonprofit. I know for a fact that corporate Houston would get behind animal welfare and have us run a first-class shelter if we would reach out and make it a nonprofit. I could just start naming the center points, the NRGs, Astro Foundation. I could go on and on. People want to support their pets, and they also understand the abuse, and certainly you ought to have zero tolerance for stray animals in the city of Houston. But it's going to take education, it's going to take work, and a prioritizing of this initiative by the city of Houston. So, as like you, we could be in a lot of places this morning. I could probably be in 100 places right now. I've got some big assignments at City Hall. But I wanted to be here, not only as my role as mayor, but even more important, as a friend of our pets, support this initiative, and let's go to work, is what I would end up by saying. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you so much. You've been a friend to us and the animals for so long. So grateful for you. And we're grateful for your dedication and compassion for the animals. It is glaringly apparent that this crisis is only solvable if the community commits to ending it together. Because we believe in working efficiently, Houston PetSet believes in organized collaboration so that the animal welfare community in Houston can speak together in one voice and demand research-backed solutions. That's why we're so excited to be hosting 12 municipal shelter directors from across Houston region today for a frank, open discussion about Houston PetSet, our partners, and our supporters can support them in important public safety roles. Here's what we know already. Shelters are full, rescues are full, fosters are full, volunteers are maxed out. Donors are hoping for solutions in progress. Fewer people are adopting, and citizens are trying to help by taking in animals off the streets, only to be turned away by the organizations tasked with animal control because they've already been at capacity for 24/7 many years in a row. Some of the animal welfare world leaned hard into the no-kill movement over the last decade and focused heavily on live release rates. But what started as a noble idea has in fact turned into a crisis in and of itself. With such a myopic focus on live outcomes, shelters have been forced to warehouse pets and even cut corners on care to accommodate their stressed capacity. They have also been forced to reject good citizens picking up strays, and they have also been forced to leave thousands more animals on the streets to breed exponentially and suffer greatly. It is our estimate that tens of thousands of animals are born on the streets, will die on the streets, never knowing a warm bed, good meal, or hear their name called because they weren't given one. We believe that in order to successfully tackle this crisis, Houston needs to take a long, hard look inward and commit to focusing on public safety and public health and how it significantly is affected by homeless animals. We can't adopt or transport our way out of this. Sadly, there's no silver bullet solution. We will continue our push for access to spay and neuter services to help stem the flow of pets into the shelters and onto the streets. We will continue to provide emergency funds to owners facing high veterinary bills for their beloved pets, and keep them in the homes that they already have. And we will never stop advocating for stricter laws, law enforcement training, and consistent enforcement. Recently, we've been saying that this crisis is worse than it's ever been, but we are also more hopeful than we've ever been. And that's because we have a mayor who believes in the crisis being solvable and will work to solve it. We have shelter directors who are committed to serving their communities and caring for the animals within their walls and on the streets. And we have supporters who will continue to call for change until the crisis abates. We also have, and hats off to this huge group, wonderful rescue groups who have been doing the lion's share of the work and will keep us civilized until this work is at an end. We're so grateful to all of you for taking the time out of your week to show your dedication, your compassion for the animals. We can only succeed with your help. Thank you and be safe. And now we'd like to open the floor for questions, especially for,
Before we do that, thank you so much. We're gonna ask, we have our closed door meeting with our shelter directors, and we don't wanna hold y'all up. So if you can scoot your way into the boardroom next door, we will then open questions up, from the media, and we'll also be available for interviews afterwards. So just give us 1 second. Yes.
we have a meeting today with the, you didn't get that, with 13 of the regional shelter directors to create this coalition, so. Just 2 seconds. Okay, in the interest of time, let's go ahead with any questions.
That standing. Yeah.
No questions? We get, oh, Lisa.
Mayor Whitmire, do you support a spay neuter ordinance at some point?
I think it's certainly something that we need to work towards. We got to look at resources. One thing I've learned at City Hall, there's a lot of spend. In previous years, we announce a program, and that's the end of it. I don't want to announce things until I have the resources, the support of council, and we go to the public and get public opinion. But certainly, other cities have successfully done that.
Yes.
And that's the ultimate solution to overcrowding and stray animals.
My question is about the homeless animal crisis. What is the areas in Houston with the highest number of stray animals?
That's a great question. I think we know at one time, 95% of the animals were coming from 5% of the zip codes, so it is somewhat concentrated. But we know since COVID, since we sort of limited intake in the shelters, that has spread greatly. So there are certain areas that are affected more by this, and that's the low-hanging fruit that we'll go after most definitely first.
It's really kind of representative of city services in general. We cannot continue to have two Houstons. We have illegal dumping in one community, and they wouldn't tolerate it in another community. You got no sidewalks in Denver Harbor. Other communities are trying to get 10-foot sidewalks. What I want to do is establish whether it's animal safety and welfare. We want it across Houston and not enforced in a social-economic advantaged community versus a disadvantaged community. We got to continue to remind Houstonians, whatever subject or service is, we're all in this together. Because what affects one area is ultimately going to affect all of us.
Agree 100%, and if I can say so, that speaks to economic development. You know,
Social, economic issues, whether we're talking about food deserts, healthcare, you name it.
large corporations moving into Houston, nowhere to put their employees because some of these areas are ravaged with the same issues, you know.
Affordability, I could go on and on and on. We've just got to emphasize that we can't provide for one corner of Houston without providing for all of Houston. And if I've accomplished anything in my administration, it's going to be we're all in this together, the unity and bringing our diversity together for mutual causes. And this would be a mutual cause.
Gloria?
If privatizing our shelter is approved, is there a timeline, and also, because other cities look into this, like San Antonio and Dallas, if they look into that, privatizing?
I could have told you one time what the other cities have done, to be honest with you, I haven't checked back there. I don't think that they have. I think it's a novel idea of me trying to look for additional resources and have corporate friends, citizens that have money, that readily give to charities and 501c projects. We've just got to get more money. And I could begin to tell you, I'm in the middle of a contract negotiation with the firefighters. They haven't had a contract in 7 years. That's a high priority. You know, the HPD is going to have a press conference this afternoon, supposedly, allegedly, that they dismissed cases because they were short-staffed. Folks, Houston has financial challenges. This should be on the priority list. And in fact, I'm sitting here thinking as addressing it as a public safety, certainly a health issue, certainly as a community resource issue. So I just believe that if folks could give to a nonprofit, and I know they love their animals, we could go to corporate Houston and have serious sponsorships by our sports franchises, by our utilities, people that want to. All we got to do is set up the mechanism. When will I be able to do it? As soon as I can. I'll certainly work with my colleagues on council to set up a time frame. I would hope by this summer we'll be able to have a plan that we can initiate, but I'm not gonna stand up here like other mayors have done, say, oh, 0 deaths by 2030. That's an able goal for car accidents, but why don't we do it in 2024, 2025? I'm not kicking the can down the road anymore. You know, but I need your help. I need the president's help. I need each and every one of you to carry out that message that we've got to have resources, we've got to be smarter, cut out the county city duplication on most of our services. Don't get me fired up.
Lisa, did you have any?
Sheriff Gonzalez, may I ask you a question? Your thoughts on the possibility of consolidating county and city?
Well, look, I'm not here, I can speak for Judge Hidalgo or Commissioner's Court. I know they're committed to this issue. A little bit of background, having been a city council member, worked very closely at the time, as my good friend Tena here will attest, trying to address the issues back then that we were having with Park, and that was back when I was on city council. We invested in trying to increase more low-cost neuter services. We invested some of our council member funds to the East End, because that is a high prevalent area, East End, Northeast, Harris County. But we're also seeing it now in unincorporated Harris County. And touching a little bit on the public safety issue, our deputies are often called to many of these scenes where we see aggressive dogs or stray dogs. Our animal control process up there in unincorporated Harris County obviously needs a lot of improvement as well. So it's not just a city issue, it's really a regional issue. And to the mayor's point, not only in the public safety realm, in other areas as well, there's room for working better together and closer together. Address duplication of services, because we're all lacking. We're not doing enough. And that's why when Houston PetSet's calls, we always try to be supportive of any initiative to support the advocacy to try to change laws. Law enforcement, we also need to do a better job of making sure that we're educating the community. We have puppy meals as well, and vendors that go to many of the retail stores in incorporated Harris County. We've been going out there to try to shut down some of that. And so it's a lot of different things. And so definitely understand the issue while I'm here on the public safety side of it to support. Also need to make sure that we're working with our county leaders to raise this as a priority, because it's woefully unacceptable that we're still per capita underspending a lot. And so I trust that Mayor Whitmire coming in just like he's already done for public safety and wanting us to work more collaboratively, and we already have. I know we could make significant progress on this as well. So I look forward to working with the mayor and his administration, and partners like Houston Police Department. We're part of the task force that does exist, and we also have some ongoing educational efforts that one of our deputies goes out into the community, but we could still be doing more.
Sheriff, can you give the same message in Spanish, please?
Sí, pues estamos aquí esta mañana para hablar sobre el tema de las mascotas que muchas veces se encuentran abandonados en la comunidad. Es un problema muy extenso, y estamos aquí para apoyar. Obviamente es un tema de seguridad pública porque vemos que muchas veces hay mascotas agresivos que atacan a personas, pero también hay muchas personas que tienen, no son buenos dueños de sus mascotas, y nosotros sabemos que muchas veces cuando hay abuso de mascotas también puede haber abuso a seres humanos, va creciendo ese tipo de violencia. Entonces tenemos que mejorar este sistema, trabajar con el alcalde, con el concilio de la ciudad de Houston para mejorar nuestra respuesta, y con estos líderes que se encuentran aquí para mejorar todo el proceso. Very grateful to the members of City Council. Having been on City Council, I know these are important issues. I talked briefly to Councilmember Castillo. I know representing District H, I know that's a priority for him as well, and committed to all of us working together to make a difference. And we work very closely with District Attorney Kim Ogg as well on these animal abuse cases as well.
I have a question. in for Sheriff Gonzalez and also HK.
Okay.
Have you guys seen an increase since COVID in aggressive animal calls and bites?
Yes, we have. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but anecdotally we have. And it's a growing problem, and we get called out to it as well. And that's why I'm familiar with our animal control process in unincorporated Harris County. It needs to be better, quite frankly. But again, we're not unique. Everybody's kind of struggling with this. And so welcome, again, to see Mayor Whitmire knowing that there's work to be done on this. And I like that it's not only about saying grandiose plans, but putting the work behind it and what needs to be done. And I know there will be, but we are seeing more growth on this, and the abuse, the dog fighting, the tethering, the tying up continues to be an issue, and it leads to more aggressiveness with them. And so, I mean, I'm not saying anything new. We see it, and we need support. We need help, because many times, as in so many issues, law enforcement is the one that gets called out, and then it could be a bad situation where we're in harm's way, and we should have effective systems, animal control and others, to be able to work. This should not be a problem here. And again, I agree, it's not one silver bullet. We've tried different things. When I was on city council, we were approving contracts to transport to other states. We were working on the improvements to bar, increased spay neutering, low cost. And it's surprising, even in the greater, like the near north side community, when we did host low cost spay neuter, the community wanted to come and participate, and we had lines waiting to participate. Sometimes when money's tight and things cost a lot of money, they don't prioritize spay and neutering. The bottom line is responsible pet ownership.
And I just want to say that hopefully you rely on Houston PetSet's. They are known as collaborators, I hope, conveners, etc. So we hope to bring the community together and help. And if there is a collaboration, if there is a privatization, that's something we're working on, we're looking at. So we hope that you lean on us, because we're not here just to talk about the issue. We're here to solve it and make it easier for everybody in a leadership role to make that happen. And we know that the mayor needs to leave. You've got many places to be. Are you good? Okay. All right. Pardon? Yes, okay, great. Do you want to say that?
Yes, I think the public needs to be reminded to report what you see. If you see a dog tied in violation of the law, if you see a dog or an animal that's been cruelly treated, you can call Crime Stoppers anonymously and be eligible for a reward. You can also call the police department. But the district attorney's office and our animal cruelty team of prosecutors relies upon your reporting to law enforcement, and then law enforcement working those cases and bringing them to us. And we are seeing more attacks on people by stray animals. And, blame is not the issue. We're looking at improving public safety. So report what you see.
Agreed, 100%. We've seen such an increase in the number of people that have been attacked by stray dogs, and that's why we're calling this a public health crisis. But there are solutions, there are ways to fix it.
A lot of these attacks are happening by owned dogs. What's the message, Mayor, to pet owners and their little responsibilities in that?
Well, honestly, it's education, prevention, being proactive. So if you have an animal that's having a bad day, deal with it before it becomes a crisis. So common sense, education, being proactive, just like you would another family member. So that would be my message.
I have a really quick question as representative of the rescue community here in Houston. I think we're really deep down, and it's like a rabbit hole of constant feedback of what can we do when we're at our max, as we've been discussing. My question is, what can we as a rescue community do? There's a lot of momentum here today, and it's so awesome to see the media here and all these people that are wanting to support this great cause, and it's just a really great step in a positive direction. Like, what can I do today? What can we do next week? What in the next month? What can we do?
I share your impatience. I'm not very but it is what it is.
Yeah.
this is the first step of coming together,
Right.
making it a priority about the stakeholders, law enforcement, organizations dedicated to animal welfare. It's an awareness, it's education. I wish I could tell you something different,
Right.
but it's support the organizations that are in the field. When you start rolling out policy changes, support it. You might remind people everywhere you go that elections matter.
Right.
So, I watched the election process in Austin completely change the environment. We wouldn't have most of the legislation. We've got some tough animal welfare laws on the state books. Probably as tough as any in the country because of PetSet's and the other stakeholders. But as we mentioned, that's just one step. You've got to have enforcement, you've got to have education. Prevention is as important as anything possible. I would just say keep on what you're doing and don't lose your enthusiasm and the belief that we can make a difference. It's amazing, just in general, the difference one person can make with an issue and organization. I've seen people just get activated and change, get to know the elected officials. The sheriff mentioned that he's not on Commissioner's Court. Commissioner's Court, in many ways, has more funds than the city of Houston. They're not under revenue cap like we are. And when you compare spending that animal welfare here in Houston versus Dallas and the other cities, we're under a local revenue cap that they're not. They're under the state revenue cap. So when we start rolling out next year, maybe asking the public to give us additional money for public safety beyond the revenue cap of 2.5% of population growth and inflation. Last year, we reduced the city budget. We had to return or lower our tax rate $400 million because of the local revenue cap. So we're in the process of documenting what fire, police, BART. In fact, I'm sitting here thinking, brilliant idea to roll BART into our public safety message that we will probably roll out next fall. We're not there yet because we've got to do the number crunching and see what we're really going to need to have the best fire and police departments in the state.
Thank you.
You bet.
We agree with privatization.
I'm sorry, I don't give short answers.
No, it's great. We agree with privatization. We've looked at other models. The zoo is one of them. Other cities have done it. Atlanta is one of them, and there's been some great success in Phoenix. So, yeah, it's the way that we're able to increase funding for this cause and for sustainability.
I know a lot of our media folks would like to stick around for some independent interviews here, so that will wrap up the public group portion of this. Thank you all so much for coming. Please follow all of us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever, and see when we're mobilizing people to act. One of those things is to vote. Early voting is happening now.
Only the podium mic. Yeah, right, the wireless yeah, safe, but I mean, I wish they would have said something.